Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We have some breaking news this afternoon. President Joe Biden is announcing he's dropping out of the 2024 race for president. In a statement posted on social media just over an hour ago, Biden saying, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision." In a subsequent post, President Biden then endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to take over the top of the Democratic ticket. WGN political analyst Paul Lisnek joins us now to talk about this. Paul, good afternoon.
Hi, Brona. Good to see you. It's not surprising news, but surprising the moment it happens.
Absolutely. We've been hearing for weeks that the president was going to continue his campaign. Why now? I mean, there's a lot of, talk after the debate on June 27th, and he was pretty steadfast in staying in the race. So what's changed, do you think?
It's a good question, Brona. And my question back to you would be, why now and why not a week ago? If this was going to be the decision, and I don't know that this decision was made a week ago, reports are that he made this decision just a few days ago, but you need time to get things in order. I think part of it is he needed time to process this decision, probably the most major decision he's made in his life, among perhaps a couple. This is pretty critical, and so he needed time to process it, be ready for it, and then also work with advisors to determine what is the best way to lay this out. You know, as of this morning on the talk shows, even on our show, Congressman Mike Quigley was with me, did not know this was coming today. And on other shows, members of the Biden campaign were appearing on morning shows and saying, no, he's on his way to do fundraisers. He's got several things lined up this week. So whether anybody knew or whether this was released when it was released, we may find out down the line. The bottom line is, if he was stepping out, probably would have been better for the Democrats had he done it before. So better now than after this point.
All right, Paul, thank you. I do want to have Illinois Congressman Mike Quigley join us now. He's joining us by phone. Congressman, what do you think of all this? It's quite a shock, I believe, or is it a shock?
No, it is a shock. I think Paul hit it on the head. I don't think anybody knew outside the inner circle, or it would have leaked in notorious D.C. fashion. So most people I knew couldn't figure out which way they were going, and that part came as a surprise.
Okay, I know we're less than a month from the DNC. We're just a few months out from the election. Do Democrats have enough time to put forth a nominee and create that sense of unity that the Republican campaign has obviously been talking about, and to get the Democratic candidate elected in November?
Absolutely. The president put out a letter today, and then he followed it up with a post in which he talked about the vice president in glowing terms. And he said he'd be speaking again later this next week. So I think he has signaled his intentions of where he wants the Democrats to go. Do I think that the vice president can be the nominee, or likely will he? Absolutely.
Okay. We have heard about other potential candidates. We've heard, a variety of names floated. We've heard Gavin Newsom. We've even heard J.B. Pritzker. What do you think the likelihood is of somebody other than Kamala Harris being at the top of the ticket?
I think it would be virtually impossible, not just because of her popularity, and that should be a very good nominee and candidate, but the unity behind President Biden for making this selfless decision can't be underestimated. I think that's significant. And from a pragmatic point of view, I've seen polling that, in a very short period of time, she's in a horse race with President Trump in the election, and we can win a horse race. So I think from a heartfelt point of view and a pragmatic point of view, she's most likely going to be the nominee.
Okay, I do want to put that same question to Paul. Paul, if you're still with us.
I am. In fact, I was going to toss something to the congressman, if I may, which is to ask two things. Congressman, it was interesting that at first there's a statement that says Biden's dropping out, but a half an hour later, he endorses Harris. I'm sort of curious whether you thought there was anything to that not being in one unified announcement from him. And then secondly, when you were on my show this morning, you didn't have this information. I'm sure this decision was made a couple of days ago. Do you think the reason not too many people knew is just so that the administration could completely control the release of this message?
Absolutely. And look, it's pretty rare something of this magnitude isn't leaked. So it speaks volumes toward that point. I think they're separate for a reason. I think the first statement is from President Biden in his official capacity. And it's about him and his legacy. And then in a separate announcement, in the continuation, the movement forward, who he thinks can carry the torch.
Okay, Paul, maybe you can answer this, specifically about the campaign funds themselves. What happens with those? If it is somebody other than Vice President Harris, are those funds transferable? Do those funds require Harris to be on the ticket in some capacity?
It's a great question. Congressman Quigley and I talked about that this morning, so I'm going to steal a little of his thunder by noting that the rules say that only Vice President Harris could get access to that $90+ million available because she is currently on the ticket. Nobody else is. Congressman, I'm going to give you credit for this line. You did say it this morning, but essentially the rules were written by some people who have the power to change the rules. And so that may be what we are likely to see happen. I'm assuming, Congressman, that's probably what's in process. Well, no, probably not in process right now, because all efforts will be behind the vice president. They don't want to make it easy for anybody else, I wouldn't think.
No, look, I think she's the nominee and the money's there. But let's not forget the obvious. This is going to open the floodgates for her ability to raise money. This is what not just the small donors, but the big mega donors were looking for. This is wind in your sails. Let's get going. And the only thing I would add, you mentioned doing this a week ago. It's a complicated process. He had to go through it emotionally, I'm sure. But what I'll give you credit for is if he had done it a week ago, it would have made the news coming out of Milwaukee virtually useless.
Congressman, we did mention there that, the DNC is obviously less than a month away now. What does this change for the DNC? Obviously, all eyes will be on Chicago, but what can we expect to see happen in just a few weeks from now in Chicago?
Well, let me give you the weeks before then, my best guess. Mm-hmm. There's an attempt to build coalition, a sense that it's the inevitability of the vice president as the nominee. We come to that, and there's a virtual vote, as there was going to be before the convention, and they nominate the vice president. And then the DNC is what the DNC was going to be, and as with most conventions, a political pep rally that, messages what the Democrats are all about, why they want to win, what they have accomplished, and what's wrong with President Trump. So if that works the way I just suggested, the DNC will be pretty much what we thought it was going to be, just with a new nominee.
Okay. Paul, how do you think, we've mentioned some of those other names that have been, potentially floated. We've heard J.B. Pritzker, we've heard Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer. What do you think they're going through right now? What do you think they're feeling? I know some of them have released statements on social media, but what do you think the kind of, feeling is in those camps? Have we lost Paul?
Because he wants to let the party develop as it will. I don't think the names you just read, Brona, are the names we're going to be hearing about. For one thing, to the extent the vice president, and it's not a big deal, but brings a state with it, keep in mind that J.D. Vance now has strong appeal after his Appalachian sort of approach at the RNC. He's reaching Pennsylvania and the middle class folks of Pennsylvania. So the possibility is that Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, may come into play. Arizona has been slipping away. Senator Mark Kelly could come into play. The point is that I think one of the names you will hear will be something along the lines of a state which might have assuredly been in the Democratic column and now has been slipping away. So many of these states, which are swing states, the president's polls have been going down and down and down. So it might be an effort to shore that up in one place or another. If I can toss another question to the congressman, I know it's a bit early to start talking about Vice President Harris's record, and we'll have plenty of time to do that. But the campaign has been sending her out. We've been seeing her out a lot more. shoring up various issues such as women's rights, abortion, those kinds of things. Now we understand there may have been some good reason for it. But I'm sort of curious, one area that she will get hammered on, Congressman, is the notion of how her main job of handling the border got handled. You may remember an interview she did when she was asked, hey, you haven't been to the border? And she said, well, I haven't been to Europe yet. Do you have an answer, do you think, that the administration or the vice president should have in terms of how the border issue was handled? Because that's probably her toughest issue.
Right. I think you answer it as the team of president and vice president. And as you know, under the president's most recent orders, border crossings are dramatically down. So, not getting too far ahead of myself, top of my head, I think the answer is this was Biden-Harris action. They act as a team, and let's look at what's happening at the border right now.
Okay, I do just want to jump in. Thank you both just for joining us. We do have a statement that was posted to Truth Social a short time ago. GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump accusing Biden of not being fit to run for president, also saying we will suffer greatly because of his presidency, but we will remedy the damage he has done very quickly. Trump's statement ended with his campaign slogan, "Make America Great Again." So definitely a very interesting few weeks ahead.